ladies and gentlemen, we are here to do a tier list. Our first tier list, the first ever tier list. We stole this from Beastie Cutie, the god, the inventor of tier lists. Now, what is this tier list, you may ask? Or you will have seen it in the title already. This is the beginner-friendly tier list civ. So, if they're S tier, they're awesome for beginners. If they're D tier, you do not want to start with this as a beginner. So, yeah, I should do a budget clap. Budget clap. Now, as we all know, some of these civilizations are really, really complicated. But the older civilizations still take the cake for simplicity. In my opinion, English, S tier. So I'm gonna start off with English because everybody knows English is simple. And at the end of the game, at the end of this video, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over your focus in each civilization for the top ones. So what your unit composition looks like and what you are trying to focus on during the game. So English, S tier all the way, baby. Then let's start with things from the back that people might not be as comfortable with. Now, China, I cannot play China. And I've been playing this game for more than a year. Granted, I could have learned a little bit harder, but honestly, I think China is at D tier. China is an amazingly strong civilization. You can clap your opponents with it, but it's not good for beginners. There's just too many things that you have to control at the same time. Then the next one is Abbasid. Now, Abbasid is, I don't know, I feel like a little bit between everything. In my opinion, and I'll ask Twitch chat here to correct me. So Twitch chat, please tell me if I'm wrong. But I would put Abbasid at a B tier. Abbasid is a civilization that has, you can go for berries. So even if you're not good at getting the sheep everywhere, it's quite easy to get going with them. Not the most beginner-friendly civ, but if you've been playing the game for a month, Abbasid is going to be an easy switch. It's great for learning, and they have quirks. So Abbasid is one of those civilizations where you have so many choices. You can follow a build order, make it plain and simple, or you can go for your own creative build. A tier for military rank, but yeah, that's if you go for military rank, KP. So, no. Beginner. They don't even understand wings at this point. Now you all of a sudden are trying to expect these people to know what a wing is. Divine, thank you very much for the raid. Guys, we're quickly making a tier list for new players. So if you're new at the game, what you want to start out with and what not. So S tier English all the way, baby. I hope your stream was pumping. I got Conqueror. I just wanna remind you guys. Now the next civilization we all expect. Twitch chat, where do we put French? What do you guys think? Where does French go? Huh? Beginner civ? So French is like an AS, I would say. It's like an AS. It's between the two. The reason it's not S tier is because with French you have very expensive units. And when you lose them at the beginning of the game, you're behind. You're very, very far behind. So it does take a little bit more work to click them. So it requires a little bit more skill than the standard. HRE, fucking S tier all the way, baby. This civilization is for beginners. Now obviously to get to Conqueror is not for beginners, but to just learn the game, HRE is a very, very safe pick because they have these very chunky units that are quite nice for, you know, going into the opponent's base and not dying instantly. Yeah, and yeah, but we'll go into unit-specific things in a little bit. And Mongols. Is there a way I can add an extra tier here? Let me see. No, there's not. If I could, I would put Mongols at F tier. Fucking Mongols. Now, Mongols is difficult. Me and Mongols, we do not get along too well. We've had some beef in the past. Mongols and I. The thing is, Mongols just have so many things. They can't build farms. You have to build these pastures that spawn sheep. It's overwhelming, and it is very difficult for new players to just dive into. So, my advice would be, if you're starting out with the game, do not start out with Mongols. It is a distraction. Then, Rus. Now, Rus... Rus is similar to French in terms of expensive units. However, they do have a very nice defensive landmark, but you also need to do an extra one. So, because it's a little bit more complex than French, I'll put it in B tier. So because Rus has another mechanic where you have to go and kill animals, that makes it a little bit harder for new players. Then, Delhi. Now, if you just want to play Delhi and you're not going to do it properly, you're just a new player trying it out, to play Delhi correctly, super difficult. To play Delhi, just like make units, attack, I mean, it's an okay civilization. You have a nice landmark that gives you attack speed buff boost. So if you asked me, what is Delhi in high ranks, I would say C tier. But if you're just starting out, honestly, I would put it at B tier. It is not too complex because your units can get buffed. You can make really nice elephants as well. They're amazing. So they're very cool for beginners as well. I would actually put them in A tier, but they're a little bit, I don't know. If you're just playing Delhi and making units and not capturing sacred sites, I don't know. I think I would still put a B tier. Same as Rus, yes. Now, beginners, Malians. Now, Malians is very close to my heart. It's not for beginners. You can play it, but I've seen people who play Malians when they're not microing, when they're not using their units correctly. The reason Malians is not all the way up there is because they have very squishy units. So they have a whole set of new units that you need to figure out, learn about, and then you also have squishy men-at-arms. They're not the usual men-at-arms, but they're good against it. But that doesn't matter. Point is, Malians is a little bit more complex. Depends which way you go. You could either go for pumping out a lot of units, which by then I would put it up to B, but overall, Malians, definitely C. So yeah, KP says that this makes them brain dead. Yeah. I mean, otherwise they would be C tier, right? Then, Ottomans. Now, Ottomans, at the beginning, you have to click a lot of buttons. So, it's not S tier. But, instead of you having to make army the whole time, if you're in silver, bronze, or like I said, just starting out, the passive units are amazing. If you can follow a build order, Ottomans will be a distraction. But the problem is as well, playing them correctly is a lot harder. So, Twitch chat, I need your help on this one. As an Ottoman enjoyer, I think in high ranks, it's really powerful, but I think it's quite hard to learn at the beginning. But I've seen low rank people do it. A or S? Really? Because of the passive ATF? Twitch chat has spoken. They have passive units, and that already makes them a lot easier for new players. Now, Abbasid and Ayyubid. These two boys, they are brother and sister, you know? Those guys they are related. They're the same civilization, just in the game, they are two variants of one another. But Ayyubid's has a little bit of simplicity. If you are not good at producing military, there's a military wing that passively makes you military, which is great, especially in the late game when you're bad at it. They also have one where they spawn 3 extra villages, so I know if people lose villages, they're like, oh, I should get more villages. I think that Ayyubids, if you read the spells, it'll definitely be A tier. The only reason I'm not putting it in S is because it's not as simple as English and HRE. English and HRE, very straightforward path. You take your villages, you get the resources, you age up with your villages, you go and make units. Ayyubids is you have to build a special building, you have to choose which wing you want to go, and if you follow a build order, it's definitely an A. And it's really strong. I do believe there will be a nerf coming for these bad boys. Then, Byzantines, all the way down here. Byzantines is very overwhelming for new people. The thing is, you can play them a little bit lazy and still do pretty well, but with the amount of things that they have for you to do, you have to build all these different buildings that make things go faster, you have to make so many decisions, your villagers have extra abilities. It is too much for a new player. So, If you are a new player, stay away. Stay away from these three. Okay. Japanese, though. Now, I am giving... Japanese is difficult. If you want to play it right. But again, we're just playing it noobly. If you are just new at the game and you're learning, you're making units, with Japanese, if you go for stone, you get passive gold. If you go for gold, you get passive stone. I'm torn between A and S because their units are insanely strong. They have these samurais that just take such a big beating. So, I don't know, Twitch chat, S or A? KP says BA. I think it's a solid A. They're one-dimensional but straightforward. Ooh, I also think S. They have no castle age keeps. That's a good point. Panic Sword just kind of figured it out, yes. Okay, KP and Panic Sword convinced me. Okay, guys, we are dismissing everyone except for KP and Panic Sword. They have a good point. Japanese does have some complicated parts to it. They do run out of food, you know, except for the landmark, but you also have to learn where to put your farms. You're going to put them in different positions. Then you have these units called bannermen, and they give a bonus. It's a little bit deeper. So it requires a little bit more brain than just English and HRE. Okay. You have to understand macro with them. Good. And there's also no keeps. Okay. Now. The Japanese, I would have put one lower, actually. But because they're really cool and enticing for people, we'll put it in A. The reason I put it down here is because of playing it correctly, but they're really cool. Let's keep them in A. And you have to upgrade your TCs, exactly. Yeah, it's a fun civilization, exactly. Then we have Ms. Jeanne d'Arc. Now, Jeanne d'Arc, just like Ayyubids and Abbasid, they are very closely related to Mr. Monsieur French. And basically, they are... I know all the high-rank players are going to disagree with me, and I disagree with me too, but if you're new, Jean and French are basically the same, except you have a hero. So it requires a little bit more micro, the units are really fun, and there are some differences. Your economic buildings are more expensive, they're normal cost, but I would put it one lower, simply because you now have to micro an extra unit. You have to do extra things with it. It's a really cool civilization. Absolutely amazing as a civilization. So, the hero is hard to learn. With French, you just make knights, but with with Jean, you have to make knights and control your unit, or your hero. And then you might have to diversify after that. And then you're controlling 3 different units. It becomes a little bit harder. But it's really cool, and I would suggest everyone try it. Okay, now, Order of the Dragon. Now, this civilization, the main feature of this bad boy is the units are double as expensive, but they're double as strong. Which means they do double the damage, which means double the trouble, but also double the losses when they run into the opponent's TC. So... they will destroy any opponent in low ranks, anyone, if you do not lose your units. So, in general, I would play them like I would play French, but because they're more expensive, Twitch chat, I need help here. A or B? If you're looking to play ranked and you can control your units slightly, I would put them in A tier. But if you're just starting out and you're running your units into your opponent's TC, okay, Twitch chat also agrees, B. And then lastly, sushi. Sushi. So, sushi is interesting because sushi, playing it correctly, really difficult. Oh, not really difficult. Playing it is easy. But as a beginner, you're like, what the hell is this button? What does this do? What does this do? What is that? What is this? There's just so many things that you have to learn. So the problem is, the reason I wouldn't put it at the same as China, even though China and sushi are related, is because they have free units. They are free units. So every time you build a production building, you get a free unit. Build a production building, you get a free unit. And their farms are super, super cheap. So they're a very forgiving civilization. I would honestly be able to put it in B, but because there's all those elements of having imperial officials, not having archers, which is a whole new thing. So if you played another Civ and you come to Sushi, you're like, where's my archers? I think they can be a little bit overwhelming at the beginning. So I see, yeah, KP also says between B and C. Yeah, I'll definitely put him in between that two. And that, I would say, is the overarching idea of what you should do as a beginner. So, as an English player, I got Conqueror on English for the first time. It was amazing. It was easy, but now I struggle a little bit more because I think that other civilizations learned how to deal with it. HRE, on the other hand, it is a civilization that you can just make one unit and you can beat your opponents. So let's just quickly review them so you know what unit or what civilization is the right pick for you. English, you usually make a lot of longbows. So there are archers that shoot a little bit further and they're quite cheap. I mean, they're archer costs, but they also come out of a building that is really good at producing them. It's quite fast. They get extra attack speed if you put towers down, so you have a really strong foundation. And then you make men-at-arms. So longbows and men-at-arms at low ranks and for new people is the best composition that you'll find, because men-at-arms don't die to things very easily and longbows do a lot of damage. So that is your composition. So you're mostly going to use your barracks and your landmark for longbow production. This is a tier list for new players, yes, Mustafa. Then HRE. HRE is a civilization that gives a bonus to gathering. So when you're gathering resources based on what you aged up with, but you'll age up with that one, you'll get your villagers getting resources a lot faster. The problem is you run out of food pretty quickly, so you have to know where to put your landmark, but you get resources faster, which means you can make units faster, you can go to castle faster, and you can make men-at-arms. Now, HRE men-at-arms and English men-at-arms, quite similar, except HRE men-at-arms are insane. They are very strong in Castle Age because you get special upgrades for them. They do an insane amount of damage, and when you have the right upgrades, you just make that one unit and you walk into his base. That is it, all you need to do. Then French, it's a knight civilization. You just have a ton of knights running in, killing things. Straightforward. They also have a pretty good late game, so when you are a very passive player, you can go for a lot of town centers, your keeps are pretty strong. So they're pretty much a make horse, kill with horse. Ottomans, passive units, so you get these buildings that spawn random units. Oh, random units, you choose the units, but a lot of different units, and you're able to get them without clicking buttons. That's why they're quite nice. You just click the button once and it'll keep making that unit. Then AOBits, they have passive units as well, and as long as you follow a build, they are extremely strong. The units don't die very easily because their units are quite chunky. So I would say AOBits maybe B, but a little bit more complicated than Ottomans, but not more complicated to put it down. Not complicated at low ranks, but yeah, now I'm just doubting myself. Japanese, fun. Absolutely fun because you get all these passive resources while you're mining gold. You get a little bit of stone. When you're mining stone, you get a little bit of gold. You have passive farms that just pop up. They're really nice. So for you, if you're starting out, anything from S to B tier is fine. But I would say the first two lines, they're probably the best place to start. What do you suggest for new players? Fast aggression builds or fast castle? I would say aggression, because if you're playing an aggressive build, you're going to learn how to play the game a lot more quickly than sitting in your base and not doing anything. And you're going to go to the next game pretty quickly. So, you want to become better at the game. Got it. So, what are you going to do? You suck at the game right now. You just installed this motherfucker. Great. That's the first step. Now, what do? You only do two things at a time. Two things, like two hotkeys. So you select your TC. I keybind mine by using Control 4. That's it. Control 4. And my scout, Control 2. Villagers, onto deer. And this is now your first set of practice. What you do is, you send your scout around. And this is very slow, obviously. And make sure you're always making a villager. That's it. Always making villager. Now, if you want to practice getting a little bit faster, you just click between these two buttons. So you can watch your scout the whole time and watch these to make sure you'll keep making villagers. Keep your eyes on the left side to make sure that you see where what is. Control your scout. That's why you look back at it the whole time. So now I click it. I run after the sheep. Put it up there. Put it up here. Click TC again. You don't click on the map. You use your keys. That is it. So just 4 and 2. Once you've got that down, you can go to next steps. But for now, just do these. What I do then is I usually, if I'm playing Jean d'Arc, which I usually don't, I keybind Jean on number 3. That's my next key. So if you're already good at 2, you use 3. So now we go to 2, 4, 3. 2, 4, 3. 2, 4. Am I making a villager? Almost not. Keep pumping. Now I'm going to rally onto gold. Keep looking at my scout. Am I missing any sheep? Go back to the TC. Looking at the scout, back to the TC. Constantly. That's all you need to do at the beginning. Because if you're just starting out, this is all that matters. You keep looking. Am I making a villager? Need to make a villager. Okay. So now your scout's coming back. You want to control your scout, like I said. You don't just click the buttons randomly. But it's just for you to practice at the beginning. So you use H to select TC. I mean, most people do. But yeah, you can do it both ways. If you want to use hotkeys properly, yeah, you can use H. H is also a very good idea. H for home. Okay. So I'm just going to keep using these things. Look at Jean. What is her experience at? So yeah, that's it. That's the beginning. If you're just starting out using keys, that's how you do it. Don't try to overcomplicate it. Otherwise, you're gonna overwhelm yourself.